and I'll go ahead and kind of walk us through what we're going to do today. Got a little bit of a change. As I was explaining to Pam and to Vince earlier, we're taking the full 4-hour CCNG regional event and squishing it down into a 1-hour virtual event, trying to have some fun, try to get people to see and exchange with each other, but accomplish a number of things. So we'll move a little faster today, little differently. Screen share will come down here in a minute as I turn things over to Pam. But our topics today, these are starting to shift and move as things change and shift. I think I want to point out one really important thing. If you're participating, maybe you're participating for the first time, and you're thinking, wow, I don't really have any, I'm in no position to tell people how to do, this, that, or the other off of this list. Well, everyone on this call can share a little bit about what they've been going through in the last 45 days. Because I promise you, if we roll tape back 45 days, you had no idea what was coming. And you had no idea what you were going to have to learn and how quickly you were going to have to learn it. And you did. And that can be very helpful to other members. So just sharing, if you want to jump in and contribute in that manner, that is always welcome. So these meetings today, the agenda will have Pam do our opening remarks, Pam Plyler with Northridge Group, and then we'll open it up to Town Hall. That's where we all can contribute for about 30 minutes. And then we're going to do a member perspective. We've asked this Vince Lynch with IV.ai to help us out there, another 5-minute talk, kind of a shortened version of a member talk. Take a couple of Q&A, and then we'll give you some updates and wrap things up right at the top of the hour. So we'll try very hard not to run out of time. It's 2:05. Pam, I'm going to shut off the screen share and turn things over to you.
All right, sounds great. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm really looking forward to the discussion today, and just have a few introductory remarks, really to get the thought stimulated and open it up for some discussion. So, as David said, as you think back to the last couple of months, we've all learned a lot, right? It's been amazing to see how far we've come in such a short time, and while it's been personally and professionally challenging, we've learned a lot, right? And, some of the things that I hear on either the previous CCNG sessions or with our clients is, some amazing results around how our teams have really showed up during these challenging times. So whether that's a deeper level of engagement with their team members, whether that be just a passion for taking care of our team and staying focused on what really matters, right? Sometimes when we're in the centers, we tend to get distracted a lot. And then the other piece is really the technology agility, right? We've seen people, companies spin up websites for the PPP program, or we've seen all of probably our companies, right, get some improved and more agile communications going with our customers. Here's our hours of operation, here's what's changing, here's when we're opening, right? So when we start to hear about it's time to start thinking about coming back into the office, one thing that we want to really pivot the conversation and have some dialogue today around is what does that new normal look like? How do we leverage all that we learned, and how do we kind of leapfrog where we were before where we started, right? Before this all started. So how do we take advantage of those learnings? And what I want to really think about today and talk with all of you about today are a couple of key tenets on now is a perfect time to take a step back and think about our strategic objectives. And are there areas in our in just how we do work, how we do business, how we attract and retain people, that we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of as we define what that new normal is for us, right? So, so some of the areas, the first and really probably most significant is our talent and our recruiting strategies. And this was brought up in the last CCNG town hall with Kay and team, where there was a lot of discussion around, we've seen, this is a new normal for us, meaning expecting that customers are going to come in through all of your channels, right? We've trained them and opened up some of the digital channels for them. So we're going to need more people, service reps in our organization. All of us have had chat and we've had messaging, but that's going to accelerate very quickly as we go back to the new normal, because the customers want to stay in those channels, right? That's if it's easy for them, that's where they want to go. So as well as the work from home requires different skills and abilities and competencies. So talent, evaluating your talent and looking at your strategies for talent is really important right now. So we would encourage everyone to, if you're using a screening tool, take a look at it and refresh it, right? Look at and say, am I really recruiting the right skills and competencies, not for what I needed yesterday or today, but in this new normal going forward. There's, unfortunately, because there's been so much business disruption, there is a lot of talent on the market right now. So if I open my perspective on what talent might be available, how might I recruit differently for my frontline professionals, for my team managers, for my leaders? So really kind of taking a step back from a talent acquisition and evaluation perspective would be really tenet one. The second tenet would be really taking a fresh look at your resourcing strategies. And what I mean by that is, we all are talking about, okay, well, the work from home, we broke through a lot of preconceived biases on how many, what percentage of our workforce could be work from home. We might have started at 20%, now we're at 100. What's the right perspective, right? Should it be 50%, 60%? And what changes do we need to make in our operation in order to support that new environment? So work from home strategies, I think, is certainly on everybody's mind. What's the right optimal percentage? However, there are broader workforce strategies that need to be addressed. Things like, we would encourage everyone to really look at your outsourcer strategy, right? Do you have an outsourcer today? If you do, how did they perform? Did they really come out of the gate, and were they a great, strong partner of yours? Or might now be a time to think about, do I need a different partner in the future? If I don't have an outsourcer, would that have been helpful from a business continuity, disaster recovery perspective? If I was offshore, because offshore outsourcers had a ton of issues with this, because they couldn't just migrate to home, as easily as we could in the United States. So should I be thinking about offshore, nearshore, domestic differently, right? So outsourcing strategies. And then of your internal staffing strategies, where do you want to grow, and where should you be thinking about your hiring, right? So many times when you start to get back to normal, you just kind of go back to the staffing requirements that you had before this all hit, right? The reality is, now is the time to really stack rank all of your facilities. If I have 10 facilities, there's probably 3 of them that are, they're amazing, they're in great locations, great markets, right talent, I should be growing those facilities. Do I have enough space, right? There's probably some that you want to maintain, and there might be some that you want to shrink. So thinking through that and understanding what sites do you really want to be leveraging, I think is going to be critically important for how you come back. And then also just forecasting, right? Right now, our forecasts have been really blown up, right? Some groups have been 30% under forecast, like healthcare. Some have been, financial services, their volumes have gone through the roof. So strengthening your forecasting processes and hiring plans, because it's going to be an unknown, ambiguous for the next, however many, 6, 8, 12 months. So strengthening those forecasting capabilities and hiring plans. And then lastly, I would say just your digital presence. Now that the customers you've trained them, and you've been using the mobile communications, or you've been using your Facebook Messenger to communicate with your customers, how do we start to accelerate that and use those tools and processes and channels even more effectively going forward? Because it's easier for them, it's better for you, and really talking through the digital kind of omni-channel strategies as well. And then just lastly, I would say the leadership talent, right? I'm sure all of you and all of us have seen some of our leaders thrive in this area during these times, and some of them have struggled. So really understanding what your leadership team is looking like to take you to that next level and strategically grow your business. And in this world, which will be much more versatile, be more agile, be more virtual, would be an area of suggestion. So those are kind of the topics that I thought we might kind of throw out to the team for feedback, and get your ideas on what areas you've been tackling, or share some ideas on how you might have already be moving forward on those areas.
Great, Pam. All right, who wants to jump in first?
Well, Pam, I had just a comment related to something that you mentioned that I wanted to see what you thought about, and that is that some of our customers, we help people with contact center implementations and customer engagement. Some of them are telling us that the digital channels are more important now than they even were before. Like, we'd seen the industry move, obviously, that digital channels were getting on par with voice, but they're actually seeing in some instances a drop in voice volume and a shift to move to the other channels. And I just wondered if anyone else is seeing that. Was it industry specific, or for the life of me, I cannot imagine how this experience with COVID has affected that sort of shift, but it does appear, at least anecdotally, that it's making people use digital channels more than they were voice, and shifting that skew. So I just wanted to hear comments on that.
Yeah, I'll just comment briefly, and then I'd love to hear from the rest of the team as well. We absolutely have seen that shift across all verticals. All of our clients have seen that shift. And that we believe the reason and what we're seeing is, if you think about it, wait times, because customers understood that when we moved to home, that we were short staffing, that they wanted to be responsive, that wait times in some cases, like in financial services, were incredibly long. They immediately went to the online channels. And what the good news is companies tended to show up there really well. So like Facebook Messenger is a great example. I think they're seeing a lot more, if you have a Facebook presence, that a lot more engagement, because it was easier, quicker for them to just try it. And when they got a response, then the customers are navigating to those channels. So we're absolutely seeing that. How about others on the call?
This is Matt Woody. I'm in banking, and we've definitely seen an increase in the digital channels. We haven't necessarily seen a decrease in the contact center volumes, either video or chat, email, or voice. But I would say it's primarily due to branches limiting the access, the brick and mortar branches limiting access inside the branches. So while over time we may see a decrease in our phone volumes, but right now we're not seeing that, just because we're a substitute for people going into a branch location. We've been open the whole time. It's just we've limited access to customers to come through the branch through drive-throughs only, and now we're starting to open up for appointment only inside the branches.
I was also, it's Noel here, actually wondering about web traffic too, that with brick and mortar being shut down, one of the things I think that's probably been driving the chat traffic has been that without going to the brick and mortar locations, they've been going to the website more, and if you've got chat going there, then they've been leveraging the chat channel. So I'm just wondering if that's one of the reasons, and whether therefore web chat has been an uptick area. Pam, you mentioned about Facebook Messenger, but some of those other chat channels, what have people been seeing? And the one channel I've been hearing about is the web chat. So yeah,
they're definitely up, I think. And Matt, to your point, I think overall transactions are up, because there's so much unknown, there's so much uncertainty, and you're getting a lot of these transactional questions. When are you opening, and can I do this, and do you have an appointment? All that volume will tend to subside as this happens. So that's why one of the recommendations that we have is evaluating your web channels, your live chat, your mobile self-service right now, to understand why they're going there and what you think those opportunities are, will allow them to stay in those channels after you start to open back up your live channels. They still want to call you, but they should call you for more urgent, more complex issues, right?
This is David. I think one of the other things I'm seeing is that there's a increase in just the use of technology, period. I mean, people are forced to jump onto technology, whether it's the Zoom calls like this or whatever. And a lot of the people that previously had been afraid of it are no longer afraid of it, and they're getting comfortable with technology. So I think you're going to see, I don't think this is a short time thing. And just one other comment that I'm seeing is a increased lack of tolerance for people saying we're at reduced staffing. It's at the point now where people expect you to have figured this out and to be operating your business as if nothing was going on. And so that excuse of, the COVID, due to the COVID, those messages probably should be removed from people's call centers pretty quickly, because people are expecting you to be able to handle business.
David, this is Dave Mershig. I think that's a great point about the evolution and adoption of technology, because all those things like moving more digital channels going, I think you're seeing a lot more people asking about callback and for voice traffic. When you can't go to a branch, you can't go into the actual brick and mortar store, you're more likely to call or interact with the contact center, and all this technology that before people might have been a little bit slower to adopt and wonder whether their customers are going to accept it and embrace it. I think you're exactly right. I think this is really a watershed moment, if you will. If you think about it, us calling these contact centers, using the word center as part of it, is really now going to be anomalistic. I think what we're going to find is that the people are really looking at how do they deploy technology in a way that's the most effective. And Pam said it earlier about resourcing, right? This has completely changed the way we can find resources and where they can be placed. I'm not saying that we're there yet, because I think, that many of the changes that have been undertaken in the first 3 or 4 months of this pandemic have been rapid and maybe not all that long-term in terms of their final deployment, so to speak. So I think you're going to see a whole lot more of that technology adoption that you mentioned, David, that people are really going to start embracing. And it's completely changed the dynamic that we're going to operate in. I think it's a really kind of an exciting time.
I think for us too, this is Catherine Jackson. One of the things that we have found out is, depending on how tech savvy or the type of technology that people, for us it was telemedicine, and how well did we organize that and how well was our technology functioning. And then we had to really help our agents understand how to troubleshoot it, because they don't want to be shoveled off to some help desk somewhere. They call the number that they know the best, which is the call center, and they say, I can't get to my telemedicine call, and you need to help me troubleshoot it because it's in 5 minutes or it's right now. And so we had to interface with all of those other departments that were the help desk, bring it into our knowledge base, train our agents how to troubleshoot at the primary level and to really understand the technology so they could help. And I think that's what's going to happen in the future too, is we've got to take on a greater role of helping people understand how to use the technology, because they will become more dependent on it. And some people just are, as everyone said, you're just beginning to learn how to do it. And you need that agent to be the one who helps them through the first part. And yes, there will be escalations, but absolutely, we need to become more of that first level troubleshooting. We're here to help you. And that truly is, the call center, everybody talks about how will the calls change. And in this technology environment, I think we take more of that first level troubleshooting on.
Yeah, I would also offer up we've got to make it easier, right? Technology, unfortunately, we have not invested enough in our technology solutions as an industry to make it easy and effortless. I think about my 90-year-old mother, who now wants me to use video call every time because we've been doing that for all these activities over the last 2 months, right? So if we don't make it easy, it's going to create more angst, more frustration, more effort, and frankly, more calls and cost for us. So taking the data from the call center and feeding it back into our engineering teams, whether it be website engineering or mobile app or whatever it might be, to make it easier is going to be an area that all of us will need to focus on, because this is a new world in that regard.
And Pam, it was really interesting when we started this is Catherine again, is that the level of help desk that the organization had engineers on the calls. And so when we had to start doing it with our agents, we simplified it. And we said, I understand what you're telling most people today, but let me help you understand that that doesn't compute with a lot of people that we have on the call. We need to not just simplify the technology, but simplify how we troubleshoot the technology or explain how we troubleshoot it. It's not in engineering language. It's in a consumer oriented language that is step one, step two. Okay, let's back up again to step one. And it's that patience. Again, you were talking about competencies. Again, it is that patience with people who don't have the technology competency. We can't make them feel bad. And that's, I mean, I think a lot of times I heard frustration from people of like, I'm trying, I'm just trying. And it's all those different customer service skills, making it simple language that we had to overcome and help even the help desk to say, let us take this on for you and let us simplify it so that you don't have to worry about this first level.
So could I kind of build on that with others on the team? Have any of you had this opportunity and taken this, because I've heard it on the previous CCNG webinars, talking about needing a different skill set going forward. Does anyone on the call have examples to share of where you've either looked at your screening tools or your competencies and you've updated or enhanced them? Any suggestions to offer to the teams? Still kind of a gap.
Well, we've seen an increase in interest in co-browse, obviously. So the ability to point and do, as Kay was suggesting, help people walk through it. So, you know, that's become something that moved up the priority list for people that didn't have it. And I think we'll continue to see that be a key part of the solutions going forward. For that very reason, I don't think there's, don't think there's going to be a reduction in the need for that. And it's really driven that point home.
And if I could, just another one that we started taking on calls for other hospital departments that finally figured out when they had to move home that the call center was the better centralized organization to take the calls that they were taking. And I think it's interesting because some of them were normal calls that we took anyway. We were just an adjunct to the other department. But now these are new calls that require new competencies. And I'm wondering how many other organizations had that happen, that other departments in your corporation or your organization said, can you take these calls during this time for us because we've got to go home?
Any comments around that?
Well, definitely to my comments earlier, our branches, people were going home, and so we took on the phone calls that would normally be in the branches. And then we have video interactive teller machines where they're interacting person to person via video, really doing the same functions that are normally done inside a branch. So that volume went up 192% and has stayed up over 100% compared to pre-pandemic times. To your question earlier about looking for different talent, we are already starting to look at the competencies and how we selected people before the pandemic hit, but it's just reinforced our need. We've been working very closely on bolstering our simulation activities inside the recruiting space with online tools to simulate the job and paying a lot more attention to how adept people are to navigating multiple systems and recording information in a system to kind of simulate the job versus just going based on their really good customer service conversationalists.
And I'd be curious to hear what maybe Nick and Michael have to say as they're seeing some of these changes for those leaning on third-party outsourcers for help during these challenges. So any comments there, Nick?
Not specifically around around technology as much as staffing. I think going back to something that Pam brought up regarding staffing. So, most of our clients and our vendors are recalibrating their agent profiles because that's a completely different profile for a work-at-home agent versus an on-premise agent. I'm we're actually advising them to completely retool the way that they're maybe doing personality and profile matching. Some agents thrive in an environment where they're autonomous and working at home, and others don't, quite frankly. I also want to mention something that David Reed commented on regarding because of COVID long haul times. It's time for that message to go away. As a consumer, calling call centers myself, I've had some pretty bad experiences over the past week or two with just horribly long hold times, the chat functions that didn't quite resolve my issue, content forums that really didn't provide the information I was looking for. And this is, I've had these experiences with some large brands, some large banking and financial brands, retail brands. So while we're seeing an uptick in work at home staffing and a higher unemployment rate, which is bringing more qualified workers into the labor force that call center operations can tap into, I'm still not seeing a reduction in hold times, and I'm seeing an increase in customer experience issues. So I'm not sure if it's a function of in-house call centers and outsourced call centers not mobilizing staff or not staffing properly, or if it's a function of technology. I'm not quite sure, but I think we're all over the initial shock of COVID, and it's now time to start thinking about the customer again. And what I'm seeing so far is disturbing.
And we're afraid, Nick, that that's going to get worse because, what's happened is they've attrited or they've laid people off, and now they're waiting and seeing, right? And we're advising all of our clients, you can't do that. You get behind during your peak season of either holiday or first quarter, and you're going to never recover, and you're not going to get the results. Your customers are not going to give you a break for that, right? So forecasting and really understanding, that's why we brought up forecasting, is really having strong workforce management practices to look at those outside-in drivers and get ahead of the hiring now, because you're going to pay for it down the road if you don't.
That's right. There is one postscript, my comment, which is that quite a few of our clients are not seeing the uptick in performance or the lift in performance from work at home that they were seeing when COVID first hit. In fact, quite a few of them have come back to us and said, do you have outsourcers who can staff on premise? I'm working on an opportunity right now with a very large corporation that outsources thousands of seats, and they want to repurpose 500 to 600 seats to two vendors that have on-premise staffing capability, because their work at home performance is not keeping up with pre-COVID on-premise performance, not in all cases, but in some. We also have some cases where we have some fairly complex clients that have 2 to 3 up to 4 weeks of training, who once said, hey, we'll never use a work at home model because we just feel that our product and our programs are too complex. Well, now they've adapted the work at home model because they're seeing that their customer experience scores and their performance numbers look pretty good, even with the most complex transactions, if you will. So, it's a delicate balance here, but I am starting to see more and more interest and more questions coming up about, hey, when do we get back inside the call center?
And Nick, I think
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that you're also going to see is there's a lot of people out there, not just in call centers, but just in general in the workforce, that have worked from home and are thinking, I kind of like this. I don't like the commute. And now with the rioting and other stuff going on, I don't want to go to a downtown market. I don't want to go to an urban area. And so I think one of the big discussions that every organization, including call centers, is going to have to go through in the next couple of months is who gets to come back in, who we want to come back in, who is qualified and is capable of working from home and still performing. As Nick was mentioning, not everyone's capable of working from home. We've forced them to right now, but that's not necessarily the best solution for a lot of people. And so I think that discussion and what kind of mix do we come out of this? Is it a 50-50 mix of remote agents and on-premise agents? What is it going to look like? But all the there's a lot of discussion going on around that topic right now.
Yes.
And that's what I was going to say, is that what both of you are saying is what we're finding out is that if you think there's one answer, there's not. We have a 7-week training, and it is a highly complex different call types. And we've always done some, especially up training, we've done virtual, but we've gone virtual because of work at home. But to what you said, Nick, not everyone can work at home. And we're finding that the performance levels of some people, it's just a different mindset. And I worked for a company too that most of the people were work at home, and when we would hire people, they needed the interaction that just it doesn't work for them. And so I think what we're all going to have to do after this is really decide, are we going to have a mixed model? And if we have a mixed model, how do we evaluate both? Because we can't overlay one set of competencies on a work at home and the same level of competencies at a on-prem, because they're just different, like you said, Nick. So we've got to evaluate, what are we going to do? And we will have just different competencies and different protocols depending upon where they are.
George, do you have anything to add to that based upon your businesses?
No, I think we're seeing a lot of the same things. I think the comments about who's going to come back into the center and who's going to stay at home is very relative to some of the challenges that we have. We were working, our primary client, we're an outsourcer, so our primary client had been always very hands-off and not interested at all in work from home. And of course, in a matter of a couple of days, turned that around. And so we had to jump through a lot of hoops with their IT group just to pull it off to manage call volume. So we've got a lot of these similar challenges that you see as volumes are now starting to tick back up. We're having to address how to bring that workforce back online. Subsequently, someone mentioned about finding out that the call center was a great place to drop other calls. They put a lot of additional call types onto us, and so that sucked up some of our workforce to handle those types of calls that are more COVID related, but they will be around for a while. So it just adds additional challenges to how we're going to staff as this thing comes back.
Any other comments on that? I've got a question for Pam. Are you seeing an increased appetite in expanding those digital channels? And are you running into, how do we justify this? This was something we said we would think about long term. This hit, now we're thinking about it, an immediate impact. Can you share any insights on that?
Yeah, certainly. I think many clients, as you said, were already focused on it, but they realize now that it's an imperative, it's not optional. And I think that what we're seeing more of is how do we execute on the other channels, and how do we do that more seamlessly? Because as they grow, because in the past, right, you had an email working group, you had a chat group, you had phones, and there wasn't a whole lot of sharing. But as those other channels grow, it's going to change your resourcing strategy too. And what are the requirements and the talent and the capabilities to have a blended agent so that I can do chat and phone and co-browse, right, is a very different skill set than what many of our clients have today. So I think they know they need to expand the channels. They know they need to accelerate it. And we're basically helping them to look all the way through the process, not just at the technology, because a lot of them want to start at the technology, and that's the last place they should be starting. They got to start with the process and the people, and then make sure that the technology is enabling it.
Any comments around that?
David, one other issue I'm curious to hear from the group on is the cultural impact of this, because there's a lot of people that have been off-site now for a couple months. And are you seeing any degradation in your culture and your core values and things of that sort, because they're not around to bounce things off each other physically and to be in the same office? And I've had several clients who hired people right at the onset of this. And how do you infuse your corporate culture and your ideals in with people that are not physically on site with you. So I'd love to hear from some of y'all on how you're dealing with that issue.
David, Nick here. One of our clients is well, a lot of our clients are very brand conscious, and one of the requirements of their outsourcers is that they want to be an extension. There has to be an extension of their brand, mission, and values in the outsourcer's operations. And so, given that we're in a work at home situation, that's very difficult to do. So one of our clients has asked their internal staff, their internal call center staff and team leaders to buddy up and pair up and do a lot more coaching and mentoring with the outsourcing staff, much more than they ever have before. And this way, the outsourcer, feels that they're still part of the client's culture and the brand is reinforced. And so our clients are collaborating a lot more with their outsourcers in addressing that issue individually with each agent. There are Zoom calls, there are motivational calls going on, much more than ever before. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's all virtual as opposed to in person.
Now, before I ask Vince to jump in here, I'm going to put up that graphic that you were asking me about, Pam. The one that talked about people, and maybe Ted has a comment on this as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. This really resonated as you're thinking about the capabilities and skill sets and competencies that your associates need in the future. And this goes to your point, David, on the culture, right? We want to build for the future culture, not only in our processes and our leadership team, but these the future capabilities and how they work is dramatically different. So keeping this in mind really resonated. So.
Any other comments on this? I'm looking at you, Ted.
Yeah, this is Ted. Yeah. One thing that's missing on this list that I think we're running into a lot over the last 2 months is there's nothing about the supervisor directly. The ones that we see struggling the most and who really want to get back into the office, at least in some manner, whether it's a mix or not, is the supervisor. They're having trouble with the sense they had when they were in the building, that visceral feel they had of looking people in the eye and sensing when people had problems. And I wonder, if some of the performance degradation and things we have going on is less the agent fit as much as it is the supervisor's skill in managing at home.
Yeah, Ted, I would completely concur with that. We have one of the services that we offer is frontline team manager coaching and training and teaching them skill development. And it is through the roof. I mean, clients are realizing that they did before this happened, but even now that they've got to strengthen all those skills. So, and to your point, you have to identify, is it a skill issue or is it an overall competency issue? And they're going to make or break the success of the work at home model.
Any other comments on that?
The only other thing I would say, and I agree with everybody, is the hardest thing that we deal with is teaching people how to be real over a virtual environment. And whether we're sharing an announcement or a Zoom call, we've just recently even started every meeting with some kind of meditation or mindfulness because we knew that people were dealing with things that they couldn't go into the center and talk with their buddies about as they were, at lunch or on break. And so we had to start figuring out, how do we provide that in a virtual environment where they feel safe, both with each other and with the management team. And our goal was, again, let's develop some voluntary meetings where we just have those meditation or mindfulness sessions that they can block into, and then teach people how to communicate in a written form and over a virtual form so that it is real and that it's caring and that it is affirmative and that it's supportive. Because I think a lot of people have never had to figure out how to do that. Some people can be very adept face-to-face, but really struggle in a virtual environment to be real and to convey the empathy and the support that people need when they go home.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Kay. And it's been really interesting. One of the things I'm seeing a big uptick in is organizations that have been remote for a while. They're looking for ways, and they're hungry for ways to connect with each other. I mean, we've been asked to do some of these 16 types Myers-Briggs profiles virtually on Zoom with groups, and they've been a huge success because people are they're learning about each other, and they've learned a lot about themselves while being isolated, and they want to understand this. And so we've been facilitating a lot of those type of sessions with groups because people really want that cultural. And just one final comment, I just got a reply back. I'm leading a group next week that normally we do an in-person retreat every year with about 350 people. And we're allowed to do some limited, but we sent out a survey, and 38% of the people who responded just now said they're not comfortable coming into an office yet. So even though you're legally and are able to, there's going to be a large part of the population that's not ready to go there yet. So you may not have an option but to retain some of the remote workforce until people get comfortable and they feel safe in coming back into an office.
Right.
I wanted to mention
Good for you for setting that up. What a great job you just did in helping them with the Myers-Briggs or anything like that. Good for you.
I wanted to add on with what Kay was talking about, in that one of the things that we're finding in research is that what goes first when you go to a virtual, 100% virtual, is spontaneous, unmonitored conversation. So when you think about an agent who might struggle, who leans next to the person by their right and says, I do want to admit to everybody in the meeting, but I really don't know how to do that. There's a lot more of that conversation that goes on than we think. And as well, we think, oh, everybody wants to be social, so let's create this, virtual water coolers. The problem is the water cooler isn't unmonitored as the water cooler is in the break room. They can go to the water cooler, they can voice complaints, they can ask things, they can pull a supervisor aside. And so what happens is why we believe the supervisors struggle the most is that it takes so much more effort to have those spontaneous conversations virtually than it does to be able to do them by just walking the aisle or in the center. And the same for agents. They feel as though everything they're doing is structured and monitored, and they have to watch everything they're doing. And so there's either on stage or there's off stage. There's no in between at work. So just something else.
Great point.
Food for thought.
Great point. I'm keeping us on track here, guys. Asked Vince to pop in, Vince Lynch here, and we started in on this the last town hall. We talked a bit about it on this town hall. Kind of the role of technology and this because of the pandemic. What's happening? And Vince had some interesting perspectives of what he's been seeing. So Vince, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you for a sec. I'll kill the screen share, but the main question is, what's happening? What is AI's place and how is it evolving? So can you share some insights? Unmute yourself, Vince.
I'm going to do that first. First, I'm going to unmute myself, and then I'm going to start speaking in that order. We had a really, there's been a lot of changes, obviously, for the AI space and how we've been implementing in the contact center world since COVID, and also the way that it's kind of shaping up to be a post-COVID world, and how these realities are going to stick with us as we go back to the office. The main thing that we're seeing that's been great for us is this faster implementation. So because the C-levels are experiencing the pinch across the business, communicating the value of the contact center has been easier than ever. So for our partners to be able to show that that they need to get budgeting for implementing AI or get some time commitment from an engineering team to help with some of the implementation, the infrastructure, or whatever the case may be, generally getting all of these sign-offs and approvals from C-level has been a quicker to market, which has been wonderful. So that's been a big driver at the top level of how we're getting there. And then we're seeing new models becoming implemented, which are based on volume. So instead of it being, find a budget to implement AI and get the infrastructure built in an upfront fee put in, because the volume is so drastic and there's so much more demand because of the lag that we had when people went from working at BPOs to work from home. New business models in relation to getting AI into the mix have become easier to communicate. So instead of having an upfront fee to build an AI where you had to have a budget to do it, you can do it against the cost structure that you know about already. So if you're outsourcing 1,000 agents or 100 agents or 50 agents and you know that there's a cost associated with them, you can build in AI as a 12-month contract as a cost savings mechanism. So because AI is cheaper than managing it with agents, you can communicate through that structure more easily. And because the C-level are committing more time to thinking about the contact center and how they're managing customer relationships, you can move through different pricing models to make it affordable and achievable without building out new budgets and working to the KPI of cost saving, which obviously is always helpful. So that's from the implementation point of view. From a channels point of view, we're seeing a lot of interesting quick changes needed for IVR and smart IVR. So being able to have a better model that's able to answer customers' questions as they're coming through, and fostering it from the point of view of new things that are needed because of COVID. So with COVID, you have like some of the businesses we work with have a new, like they have a thing for first responders. So it's a discount for first responders. We'll fix your phone for you when you come through, or we'll give you a discount on the thing that you're buying. And it's to help with the community aspect and the business realities, and also, but it creates a new challenge in the contact center. So we need new knowledge management. We need to figure out how to train up in relation to people that call in that are first responders, as an example. Or curbside pickup, where you have people coming in and needing new exposure. So you have this increased demand on the contact center to build in content and to build in systems and approaches to manage these new ways of communicating with the customer. And we're finding that using those lily pads as a way to think about the customer journey as it's impacted through AI, and using the lily pad as a jumping off point to start the conversation with AI. So you have a set of work that's happening around knowledge-based management, for instance. Then you can think about, well, if we're going to start implementing chat now because we have to have curbside pickup, or we're introducing chat now because we can't have the number of voice agents that we had previously, how do we use that as a springboard for a more holistic AI strategy, and thinking about how we can implement technology across the contact center as a bigger move by using this little step to get us there. And that's been really effective for that we've seen with our clients and the partners that use our platform. And that could be through through the knowledge base updates. It could be through smart IVR. It could be through audio analytics. Another pinch that the contact centers are experiencing that you guys were discussing previously that we see a lot of is in relation to agent burnout, where you have people that are used to the social dynamic of working in a contact center and seeing people every day and being part of the benefit of the job, and getting isolated now. It's a thing we were calling COVID nightmares. So there's this thing that's happening with COVID dreams, or a lot of people are having these, really insane dreams because of all the things that are happening in the world. And then we're seeing in the contact center a thing we started calling COVID nightmares, whereas just an agent freaks out and they go from being like, everything's fine, nothing seems wrong here, and all of a sudden there's like, they have a bad day. And then it kind of ends up leading to a bunch of bad conversations with customers, and catching it earlier rather than later through audio analytics, or capturing that through being able to have regular catch-ups that are working with the manager and the agents, and using AI to kind of help manage that entire process has been a big thing. That is, for a lot of contact centers, they didn't have that on their roadmap, as they had it on, like, in the backlog of, this is a thing we want to get to, and we want to use AI to help us with QA, or help us with training, or watching out for things like things like agent burnout. And then they've basically been able to to move it all forward just through necessity of the fact that they have these things happening more often. So that's been a really big opportunity as well. And again, is a lily pad opportunity for a lot of the clients. So it's kind of using this moment where we may go back to normal in a way that it will likely go back to business as usual in relation to the business dynamics of C-level, communicating to C-level about the value of the contact center, managing demand and shifting demand. And we're finding that we're trying to run as fast as we can with our customers to try to use this moment to really empower the technical elevation of the contact center and putting an AI layer on top of it. Yeah, so that's kind of just a general overview. I can talk for 7 hours about this stuff, but I don't want to kind of just ramble. So if
you did share with me that you prepared some content that you can make a PDF form and put it out to us through the town hall channel on Slack, right?
Sure. Yeah, I just joined actually as we were chatting here at the beginning. So yeah, I'll drop that.
Oh,
on
welcome.
Slack.
Yeah, that'd be a nice lead into this slide. So I know a lot of people have had questions. It's kind of funny. We set it up and then they come to us to ask, how do I do this? And then they come back to us saying, can you introduce me to the person I'm sitting right next to on my Slack channel? Feel free to open up, get comfortable. And I think leaders like the people you've heard from today, I call upon you guys to be proactive in sharing content or ideas through that. I want to just make one comment because I recently had this experience. It was in the retail sector where the store was forced closure and now is also has some extra demands due to the given safety that's gone on in this last week. Forced the order to the website. The website placed the order, sourced the store, identified that the store did have available curbside pickup, as Vince was sharing. And within 10 minutes, I had a text message saying, please accept this text because this is how we're going to communicate to you when your pickup is ready. And that's a complete shift in experience from dealing with this particular retailer just 2-3 months ago. So that's a real life story in the retail space about how I'm seeing some of this stuff happen. But as you have more of these types of experiences or articles or links to content, and Vince, thank you for sharing that. Please use that town hall hashtag inside the Slack channel. That'll really help escalate, move stuff along. Trying to be mindful of our time here. Just a couple of follow-up items. We do have a live webinar coming up, and I'm going to tell you that we're moving that webinar with Roger Lee of GridSpace off of our Bright Talk channel and over to our new Zoom webinar feature. So it may be a little bit of a learning curve for some of us, but we'll do our best. Roger, are you on? Can you give 30 seconds on your topic and what changed from your original game plan?
Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm on. So the topic that was originally was going to be delivered was basically turbocharging your voice of customer program with speech analytics. I still will cover aspects of that topic within this particular webcast. So basically, it's really about how do we leverage what's going on regarding post-COVID, right? So we know that a lot of the centers, a lot of folks are working from home, but there's a great opportunity, right, to really streamline and automate a lot of the processes, even for the folks that are working from home. And how do we ensure that we're delivering and supporting them along the way? So I'll be talking really about how we're able to really scan, discover, and automate those interactions in a more effective way so that at the end of the day, we're really supporting the voice of the employee along with the voice of the customer.
Great. I mentioned that we are moving it over to our Zoom platform. So the crawl, walk, run here is go to the log in, go to the CCNG website, And if you'll see on the calendar where the event is right here on the 17th, you click that, it's going to bring you to this page, which is your registration page. Once you've registered, it should take you to this page. And I may have it in the wrong order, but you get the general idea. It'll just look a little different is the whole point in sharing that with you. While I'm doing this, I want to also share a couple of updates. Michelle and my marketing team and Lon have been working hard and heavy to bring things to the website as we've talked over the last 6 weeks. We now have a summary page under membership. Click member benefits. This page will pop up for you. If you're looking internally to figure out what else can I be doing, should I be doing in leveraging my level of membership, or if you've got ideas of others that would benefit from participating, there's a lot here. And it's about time we got it into one place for you to see. We're currently working on the hyperlinks, such as the Academy, and many of the people you heard from today are in that. The Academy has its own homepage, and that's a place where you can find the people that are on these town halls, as well as people sharing content and reach access to them. I know we had a member this week who's on this call that asked for some help with some virtual training, and we reached out to Kay, and subsequently we'll reach out to Pam to make that connection. So that's just an example of some of the stuff that the Academy consulting crew can do, but just one example of the stuff that's on here. So if you have questions or ideas on how to better lay that out or clarification, please let us know. We're doing our best to continue to grow this out. There's a number of new features that are on the site that I wanted to call to your attention. So there's that. Back to our slide deck. So the new changes, I did mention that we're going to be doing some new programs. We'll have a live webinar on this channel, and then we're going to be looking at doing some member talks and panels. So we've got some new content that's coming over the course of the next 45, 60 days. And if you're interested in participating, and Pam, thank you so much for leading things off today, and Vince, thank you for your contribution as well. We want to hear from you. We know who the leaders are. We know the people that want to talk. But there's always an opportunity and a platform for anyone in the membership here. So please note that we'd love to have you participate. Last comment, note that when we record these sessions, we will make them available to all members. And I believe, Michelle, if I'm not wrong, we're going to start posting that in Town Hall on the Slack channel. But we'll also make it accessible through the website, through resources. We will dissect and extract nuggets from each of our town halls and write individual blogs. So as you contribute, note that we will use your contribution both within the town hall as a whole, but we may also select it and isolate it and write a little bit about it for the benefit of other members who may not have been able to be on the town hall or may benefit from hearing from Roger or Kay or Pam or Ted or on and on and on. So we appreciate your contributions and being a part of this. I have no other comments other than, again, stay healthy, stay safe, stay connected with each other. We are here to help you.